Whoa there. Hello. I'm Linda K. Gifford. I find it so freaking hard to be on time, but that's okay. I was meeting with my publicist, um, and ooh, it's pretty exciting stuff going on. But today, we're not those nasty women. That's the other set. That's this set. Right? There's where those nasty women set. See, we're in the same room. Today, I'm going to talk to my fellow childhood sexual assault survivors some more. Today, we are working our way through my Thrive in Spades program. So, you know what? I need to check the volume. I did not do that. I've done this like with it all the way off before. Let's see. That should be better on volume. Are we there? Okay. So, again, I am, well, that's the wrong one. Usha. I also do those nasty women talk, hence the flag set. But that's tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Today is a nonpartisan workshop uh, with a super slant on human rights and the rights of the CSA survivor and the person dealing with C-PTSD on a regular basis. So, what is that? Complex. C-PTSD means complex post-traumatic stress syndrome. And the complex is what happens when somebody has been subjected to they felt at least life threatening, usually a child, almost always a child, a life threatening situation that was out of their control where they were at the mercy of somebody or something else. Now, I recommend that if you have other forms of CPTSD, you definitely listen to Anna Runkle, the Crappy Childhood Fairy. She's not sex specific, although it does come up, but she has a wonderful program on daily practice that you can do like for free. So go to, and she also has paid programs, but Anna Runkle, the Crappy Childhood Fairy, is a good place to start. I am specifically working with people with childhood sexual assault related complex post-traumatic stress syndrome. And we have been working our way through the SPADES workshop, and that is this thing here. I can show you, these are my retractable covers for when I go out. Thrive in Spades, right? Um, this is the 6 steps from trigger to happy that I am teaching now. And I just realized, I came to the realization that these are the things that I do. When I started examining how is it that I've done very well, despite the fact that parts of my life have been a mess, like married and divorced 3 times, for instance. My love life was a mess. But once I figured out that that's pretty understandable considering I was groomed and sexually assaulted for years of my childhood, adolescence, teens, um, it's par for the course. So the first thing we're going to say, I'm going to go to the top of spades and real quick wrap up S and P because today is A. The other 2 are on the playlist if you want to go back there. I still need to title them properly, and I'm not a person who's going to sit down and do those end caps and everything. So maybe next week. But the playlist is there, and they'll just go back, go back, go back. You got your P, you got your S. And we start at the shame is not yours. That's the first S in spades, which the program is also in my book, Call It Assault, coming out with the help of Steve Harrison, Bradley Group, who are the publicists and the people who are responsible for Chicken Soup for the Soul and Rich Dad Poor Dad and Bone Broth Diet and all these big self-help books becoming worthwhile, becoming helpful, because we're on track to sell hundreds of thousands of copies of Call It Assault. As soon as it comes out, I keep saying it's going to come out, but then something happens that's like, oh, we attended the National Publicity Summit and got all these requests. I'm going to be fulfilling over 70 podcast and TV show and a couple of magazines, requests to talk about the book and to talk about Call It Assault and what the whole mission is about. So I'm going to pop this up before we get going here. If you, okay, I'm going to get explicit at times. I'm going to get very explicit at times, and that might be disturbing to you, even as a CSA survivor. You know who you are and what you want to hear. I'm not going to sit here and tell you stories of violation. I am going to talk about the means, the way that we are taught not to ask for what we want, and then the reason why it's a good idea, and then some how-tos on how to do that thing. So, S, the shame is not yours. We spent a day talking about how the shame is not yours. I can do like a week. I once did a week at a time on each letter. There's a lot we can do and a lot of work we can do. But today we're going to do it in half an hour. And I think 5 minutes of those are gone. So it's easy to say, oh, I know the shame's not mine, like in a verbal, I understand it intellectually way. But shame manifests in body memory. So even those of us enlightened enough to say, hey, I'm not responsible for my own assaults, and please call it assaults. That's why the book and my TED Talk coming out, TEDx, are called Call It Assault. Because abuse isn't a strong enough word. You really need to use a word that describes the situation. And rape is a physical penetration. It's not just any ordinary crime. For me, it's such an egregious crime. I believe in capital punishment for rapists. First time. But the patriarchy thinks boys will be boys, and they just whitewash it, and that's why they call it abuse. So it's important that we start calling what happened to us and to others assault. Rape is assault. So when dealing with shame, one has to work through the body memory. And this is something that I can help people on a more specific one-on-one or in a group level. And we are going to start a group Zoom at about 4 o'clock on Wednesdays after this. I'm still collecting names, cutting my teeth at this. I'm pretty new. I've been live streaming for years, but never with such a serious path ahead of me. I've got all these press requests to fulfill. It takes time. And I've got endorsement stuff that's like I've got to fulfill all of that and get those on. And then the book comes out. So it's in the hands, the very capable hands, and of Bradley Group. And I am just thrilled. So the shame is not yours. P. This is huge, and we spend a lot of time on P. I think I ran over to like 45 minutes on P. Separating the past from the present. If you don't have PTSD, you do not understand how real the experience of it is. And complex post-traumatic stress brings in the added, complexity of the fact that a child whose brain was growing and developing, the child has probably dissociated parts, lots of parts. That doesn't even necessarily mean doesn't remember. I clearly remember what happened to me, but I've also dissociated from it in varying ways that we talk about at length in Separating the Past from the Present, and in my book, Call It Assault. I do tell you of my experience, but the book is really aimed to change the language of society to make you aware of who the real monsters and predators are. They're not monsters at all. They're predators. They look like nice guys because they really work to present that way, but they're predators. So it's very important. Separating the past from the present involves understanding how you dissociate, why you dissociate. And I keep almost spinning off to explain it all, but that was last week. Go back to last week. Moving on. Once we get good at not jumping down the rabbit hole of crazy, also last week, and knowing when we are about to having that feeling. The feelings come before the thoughts. That's the hard part with PTSD. The sensations and the feelings are what you will need to come to understand. Once you learn to sense the feeling coming over you that precurses the conscious thought that the trigger is setting off, you'll be able to mitigate that moment. You'll be able to essentially think good thoughts. Last week I talked about how to, that's the point where I was taught, and it helps so much, and I still do it if I need to. Just start saying anything I know. That's a light. I'm looking at a computer. That's a window in front of me. My neighbor's house is green. I drinking coffee. Just say the date, your name. You bring yourself back to reality when you're having. We try to do that, and you can do that. And we learned how. We talked about that last week. So moving on today, the A in spades. Everyone break for coffee. I'm double-fisted coffee. I just killed that one. So I brought it back up. Always have a backup. On my teeth? No, good. Asking for what you want. It seems to come super easy to most men, not all, but many. Many men seem to be super fine with asking for what they, I mean, it's a way of life. You will fulfill me. And never, nowhere are men more used to being the fulfilled one than in the bedroom or wherever you have sex. Sex is for women too. It's for CSA survivors too. And it should come with feelings. That's the part I didn't understand. I thought I had feelings. I thought I was an active participant in my own chosen sex life after when I was a young adult, when I was out, when I got married. But I didn't realize how disconnected I was from my actual physical self. Now, looking back, I can see that I was always focusing on trying to make somebody else happy, to make something happen for somebody else, not for me. It didn't even occur to me. And we don't teach women, even if you haven't been sexually assaulted or groomed and assaulted in your childhood, you probably weren't ever taught that, like, you have sex until you have an orgasm. It's like, no, you have sex till he has an orgasm. And women joke about like making that happen faster to get it over with and things like that. And it's like, no, that is not how it's supposed to be. And as someone who has had this awakening myself, to where I have the juxtaposition of how I used to be with getting recovery, going through therapy, becoming a survivor instead of just, someone on the raft. I'm out of the water. That's why I have a raft on one of our logos. It's like the ladder coming down to a raft on the water. It's like, climb on the ladder, and you may be hanging on while you climb up that ladder, but you're off the raft. So I got off the raft, and when I did that, my sex life became wonderful. And that doesn't mean I had a lot of sex with a bunch of people, because I am adamantly opposed to that. I think people should back up and not have a lot of baggage, and you don't need a ton of sexual experience. But what you do need is to feel actual real things, because only in receiving fully can you give fully. If you are receiving orgasmic bliss, you're more likely to be able to give it back. And this is a big stumbling block. This is why a lot of people with a background in childhood sexual abuse end up divorced. It happens over and over. I don't want to get gross talking about sex. I just want to say, and even that, gross. Sex isn't gross. Part of me had that ingrained in me to the point that I would dissociate and more or less watch what I was doing and become what I call a performance artist. So if you are someone, or or attached to someone with CPTSD, and you're having Like if you're the partner and you're having intimacy problems, I encourage you not to throw the baby out with the bathwater, meaning the problem may be unresolved childhood trauma. And we should start there. We should ask that question because it's so prevalent. When so many people statistically report having been sexually assaulted as children, and a lot of them repeatedly, and boys and girls alike, why is it that the medical establishment doesn't immediately also screen for C-PTSD, including sexual assault related complex post-traumatic stress disorder, instead of doling out antidepressants or saying you've got ADD or ADHD or OCD or personality disorder or bipolar? They're handing out antidepressants like candy, and they are destroying a whole generation of kids, young adults now, who don't think that they can live without them. They think that they have to be medically regulated. And they tried to do that with me. A few times I sought help, and no one ever asked, were you sexually assaulted as a child? And I never brought it up. It's not something you just say to anybody. I didn't connect the dots myself until I was 36 years old. And it was in therapy. And I realized, well, I woke up in the corner of my therapist's office and the whole room just stunk. It turned out I released some toxic stench like a stink bug. My therapist has decades older than me. She said she'd never actually seen it. She's heard of it, but she'd never experienced it. And it was so bad I had to like fumigate the car, go home, wash my clothes, wash them. Couldn't be in a room with anybody. I stunk so bad because of what came out in that session. And that's when I knew that, I mean, like I said, I never didn't have the memories. I just chose to repress them. I chose not to dwell on them. And when I saw this, I saw how it affected my whole life. And obviously, it's changed the trajectory of my life. I had to wait for my children to be old enough to handle this, or I would have done this years ago. But now my children are young adults and they can understand what happened to me without causing them huge emotional stress. I hope. They seem to be very supportive of what I'm doing, and I appreciate that. So, asking for what you want, it's so simple and it's so hard when you're so used to just like trying to be as good as everybody else. For me, it wasn't just about um, trying to make my partner happy or my husband happy. It was worrying about everybody they'd ever been with, comparing myself to everybody that ever was. Because when we think of when we are shame based, and if you're a childhood sexual assault survivor, you're probably shame based, because it's just inherent, that the experience is so confusing as a child, and it's not right, and you shouldn't have been part of it, but you were, and knowing where to apply the blame gets really, really fishy when your perpetrators are always blaming it on you. He blamed it on my eyes. He blamed it on the fact that I was a better mother, he said to his children, than my sister was. He was a manipulative son of a bitch who really was just my buddy friend at first. But as I grew, he kept crossing lines and pushing me to cross lines. And I did, because saying no is not a thing we are taught as girls. We are taught to go along with what people want. So back to the top, asking for what we want. It sounds good on paper, but it's foreign in actually trying to do that thing, much less trying to ask for what you want, physically, when you have so many physical barriers. So I encourage you to get deeper into this. If you are a childhood sexual assault survivor, I encourage you to do EMDR. I don't do it because I'm autistic, and I I tried, and I can't do the eye thing, but trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy saved my life, literally. I've tried to commit suicide twice, once my freshman year of college and once before that when I was had ran away from my home to the home of my assailant. This is the stuff that's hard to explain and why my own family is like, but you ran, well, you went there. I'm like, yeah, read the book, I guess. I don't know what else to tell you. That's literally why I'm talking about it, is because it was so messed up. The belief system that I had and the way I was manipulated. And what's even more messed up, everyone thinks that predators are just that. They sit there and they write it out and they've got notes and they're watching for little girls. Predators become predators accidentally too. I think that sexualizing children, sexualizing their clothes, their faces, it's a bad idea. If your daughter is wearing Daisy Dukes, you should remind her that someone wants to put their schlong up her thing, because that's how men are wired. Even the best of them. Human beings are sexually wired. That's not a bad thing, but it's been so harnessed by the patriarchy as to deny women in many, I won't say many countries, millions of women have their genitalia destroyed by their own mothers and grandmothers, the women in their tribes or groups. It's a common practice in the Middle East and parts of Africa where they cut off the labia, they cut out the clitoris. There are differing degrees of it, but they are butchering anything that can provide stimulation. They do this with newborns all the way up to 18 years old, depending on who you are. These practices should be outlawed. And now we don't even have US aid anymore going out to help people. So it's more important than ever that we pull together as women, as citizens, as people with a goddamn heart, and try to make people aware that these things are going on in the world, and aware that a patriarchal system that allows genital mutilation is not cool. And that goes for men and circumcision too. Um, Cutting off somebody's body part at birth is not a good idea. It's not. Um, ask for what you want. Even if it kills you, even if it hurts, even if you're scared, and you will be, even if it feels weird. If you're like having sex and you want to feel a certain thing, say, I would like to feel that certain thing. If you don't have that kind of relationship with your partner or your husband, then I recommend counseling for both of you. Or maybe if that doesn't work, you might consider the rest of your life's choices, because you deserve to feel good. You deserve the job you want. You deserve the education you want. You deserve a spouse or partner, and I don't care what your gender is or your gender choices, but you deserve a partner who loves you in such a way that you can be straight up honest, and they're going to be like, cool, what do I do? You like that? Yay, I'm going to do more of that because you like it. People who love you, that's how they feel about you. That's how they should feel about you. You make sure that they do. So ask for what you want. Don't just take what's given in life. And the next week, we're going to talk about the D in spades. And that's kind of moving right on along. Don't wait to feel okay to be okay. You're never going to not be a childhood sexual assault survivor. But you are just like a perfectly fine, normal childhood sexual assault survivor with natural issues. Guess what? People who never were sexually assaulted also have issues. Don't compare crosses. And don't think you're a weirdo. There's a whole bunch of us out here. A whole bunch of us out here. When 1 in 3 American women says they have been sexually assaulted, that's adult women, and 1 in 4 of them before the age of 18, and 1 in 6 of them before the age of 12, and then usually repeatedly. Hello. You're in a club nobody wants to be in, but it doesn't have to be a sad place. I'm hot, pardon me, feeling hot. It doesn't have to be a sad place, and it doesn't have to be a depriving place. Do not deprive yourself of true love and a true relationship because you're afraid. Look at yourself, realize what you do and the ways you dissociate, and stop. Easier said than done? Not really. We can do this. Watch my videos, come along, message me if you want to be in the Zoom. I really want to start it, but I need a few more people. Just like I said, getting going at this in earnest with like power behind me. I've got the power of Steve Harrison behind me now, and if the largest publicist for self-help books in the world can't help me change the language of society, I don't know who can. So check out sweetsurvivor.com, aka lindakgifford.com, and free downloads of my CD are at lindakgiffordsongs.com, which of course you can also get to through all the others. Also thosenastywomen.com. Are you sensing a theme? They all go to the same place. I'll see you tomorrow for Those Nasty Women Talk, and it's a whole another bitch fest ball game about the world and changing it and fixing it. So, bye.